Hello, my name is Patrick Bray, and I'm the Jetro San Francisco Product Coordinator. And today I'm here to talk to you about the growing interest and demand for Japanese products in many fields, and what Japanese companies need to do to fully understand the current trends and be successful. I hope one day to take you on a tour of the many San Francisco exciting design shops and show you the Japanese products in there and talk about why some are successful and some are less successful. But for now, I hope my presentation today is informative. First off, it's important to understand the US is the world's largest market and about 4 times the size of the Japanese market. This provides ample opportunity for many companies. In the US, the appreciation of Japanese design sensibilities has also led to the opening of many specialty stores for Japanese products. In the US, there are now many Japanese specialty stores that carry nearly 100% Japanese products. There are far more non-Japanese specialty shops that are also increasing the percentage of Japanese goods that they carry. And even European specialty shops are starting to carry some Japanese design goods. Japanese design is very popular due to its quality and uniqueness, and these can sometimes offset higher prices. This is important because the competition sometimes are products made in Asia at much lower prices. But the appreciation and the quality of Japanese design will allow the consumer to pay a higher price for the product. Japanese products can be seen also in many design-oriented restaurants, hotels, shops, and kitchens. Particularly popular products include kitchenware, modern pottery, gifts, designer goods, crafts, cosmetics, and food ingredients. The pictures you see around this presentation slide are some of the stores in San Francisco, and I'll briefly show you them. On the top here is Bernal Cutlery. Bernal Cutlery is a specialty knife shop, and their 2 biggest businesses are selling knives and sharpening knives, and they carry about 70% Japanese knives. They travel to Japan regularly to source products, and they are considered local experts that are popular with both chefs and with home cooks. Minimal is one of those examples of European stores. They are a Scandinavian-themed design store, but currently they carry about 10% Japanese products. Rare Device is a more standard design store that carries a lot of household products, books, stationery, candles, cosmetics, and jewelry. It carries about 30% Japanese products. Turtle and Hare is a Japanese specialty furniture shop. It carries about 90% Japanese products and usually high-end furniture. Starting on the left and the bottom is Umami Mart. Umami Mart started off as a Japanese cocktail bartender's shop. They imported Japanese cocktailware and barware and sold it around the country, usually in cooperation with many famous bartenders. They now carry many cooking goods as well as home and kitchen goods, sake, and shochu. The Japanese Pantry is a high-end wholesaler of Japanese food and ingredients, particularly to restaurants around the San Francisco Bay Area. And recently, during COVID times, when restaurants are having some trouble opening, they have opened themselves up to consumers as well. The next one is Sanko. Sanko is a kitchen essentials store, kitchen specialty store, and it is owned by JPT, Japan Paper Trading, the very successful Japanese stationery product exporting company. And they saw the opportunity in kitchen goods and opened up this specialty store, and they plan on opening more of these. Next slide, I hope to show you what US buyers are looking for. And according to the buyers I speak to, there's a need for products that combine Japanese traditional design with a good story on its background, and also adding local touches like modern functionality or something special for US customers that they expect, or a more modern look, or slight touch of a Western aesthetic. Let me show you a few examples. The example of glassware here shows the original French project up on the left. Then shows the American product, which is a little bit larger, which is standard for America. Then it shows the white porcelain, which is the Japanese version of the original French product. Why this is quite interesting is it shows Japanese design sensibility on a Western product. When the buyer saw this, they purchased it for their US store based on the excellent story that it told. Another example is of a Japanese product that was adapted for the US. Actually, it's originally a Western product, a cocktail jigger, or a instrument for measuring cocktails, that came from the West, that was brought over to Japan or redesigned for the Japanese market. And then it was so interesting that the US buyer thought it should be redesigned again for the US market. So it took a lot of flexibility and adjustments. You had to change certain things like the measurement sizes. Japanese had milliliters, US bartenders like ounces. Also difference in the way the bartenders use the glasses. And once they had this new design, they had to readjust the factory equipment to actually make it. And then, after they did all that, they had to have a new price negotiation because all these design changes added to the price. In total, it took almost a year to get this cocktail piece from Japan to the US, and now it's a very successful US product sold around the country. There are many examples of Japanese products with modern designs that are successful. Japanese kitchenware manufacturers like Kinto and Hario, they have very interesting products like rice cookers with glass tops and donabes with special modern design to them. Particularly interesting is the bottle maker Takeya that's been very successful in the water bottle market in the US. Japanese knife manufacturers have also been quite successful, combining Japanese blades with more Western style handles, for example, or different types of Western touches. The overall message I get from buyers in the US usually is, don't just bring me new Japanese products. Bring me Japanese products with a manufacturer who's flexible so we can work together and make the best product for the US. Also, it's very important to understand packaging. Packaging must be simple, and it must be understandable by English-speaking consumers. They need to understand both the features and the functions of the product, and they need to understand it kind of a quick view when they're walking by it at the store. If they can't understand it by looking at it quickly, the retailer will usually ask that it has the packaging redesigned. Let me show you a couple examples. On the left here is a high-end Japanese product that's used to clean glasses, clean them of spots, water spots, for example. But to the US customer, it looks like a very expensive towel. And they don't know why it costs so much. So the store went about and tried to explain this. They made their own label themselves and explained that it's a high-end product that cleans not only water stains, but also doesn't leave lint and many other features. Consumers did understand this, and it's become quite successful. In this case, the shop actually made the little signage that you see below, but in many cases, the shop will ask the manufacturer actually do this and change their packaging accordingly. On the right is another product that might be familiar in Japan, particularly with professionals. It's the Spherical ice cube maker. Now, in the US, we don't really have spherical ice cubes, but it's a neat product and very interesting. So the store wanted to import this, but they had to make a new label that completely explained what it was. And also they made a video explaining how it works that they put on their website. It's a fairly simple product, but it needed a fairly long explanation in English that the store was willing to do. But again, many times they'll ask the manufacturer to do this. As for regulations, American products are usually somewhat less regulated than Japanese products, but it may not be the case, and it needs to be something you look at. There are different standards for things like electrical appliances. There are regulations on rare woods. Healthcare products need very specific labeling that might be different than Japan. Electrical appliances are a key example, but sometimes you can work this out with the importer, where they change, for example, the electrical cable to help it to apply to US standards. It's something you need to be aware of. In the case of distribution, you might be dealing with an importer, might be dealing with distributors, agents, retailers, or multiples of these people. The more you reach, the more complex it gets. Obviously, if you sell to one retailer, it's fairly simple. But if you sell through a chain of an importer, a distributor, different retailers, maybe different distributors per region, it gets more complex and harder to manage. Also, you have to understand the trade-offs. You may sell to more stores, but you have to give a bigger discount. For example, if you sell to a retailer, the average discount is 50% off the retail price. Could be a little higher, could be a little lower, but 50 is kind of the general rule. If you sell to a distributor who has to again sell to a retailer, you have to give a larger discount, maybe an additional 15, 20%. Again, it depends on the product and the product area, but those are general rules of thumb. So the larger network you reach, the more discounts you have to give because there are more people involved. It's something to understand as a trade-off. Also, it's important to understand the differences between distributors and agents. For the most part, distributors like distributing products. They're in the logistics area. Agents, on the other hand, not only help with distribution, but they also market your product. They help promote it to the stores. Distributors like products that are already successful, and they just distribute them. Agents help make the product successful. But of course, for the additional promotion and work they put into it, they usually ask for a little bit higher margin. They're also harder to find, agents, than strict distributors, but they do exist, and they'll be good for your product if your product needs specific promotion. It's important you do some research on the US market, understand where you're trying to sell your products. You have to have an understanding of each store and which ones are right for you. In the below photos, I show you 3 stores in the San Francisco Bay Area with all completely different shopping aspects to them. The first one is a high-end furniture store that carries mostly Japanese furniture. At this store, every customer who comes in will be greeted, and every product explained with deep details, including the story, the craftsmanship, the design. In the middle example is more of a mass retailer. There are many Japanese products there, but there won't be many salespeople there to explain them. And even if the salespeople are available, many times there are so many products they don't know the details of all of them. So important in those stores that your labeling is very good. Most customers will be greeted when they come in, but sometimes the store is very crowded and there's not enough staff. So they'll use a combination of store's sales staff and specific labeling for the products, as well as, of course, the packaging, which is also important. So what's the standard selling price of each of these stores? What type of store is your product suitable for? Is the package enough to provide a description, or does it require additional face-to-face commentary? How popular are the stores on their websites and in their local communities? The internet, of course, is a big part of business these days for retailers and for you. And kind of my checklist with what I look over for companies. In preparing to enter the US market, first, do your market research and understand why you want to sell your products in the US. How large is the market for your products? And think realistically based on price, product, and your company. Maybe you're large enough to be able to deal with 3 or 4 different distributors all in English, but maybe it's better you start with just one, because you're a smaller company and need to learn the market first. Are you ready to work in the US? Language, negotiations, international shipments. Is there already proven demand for your product in the US, or how can you prove there's demand in the US? We went over product label and packaging a little bit, but the general rule is if it's difficult to understand what the product is at a quick glance, it needs to be better packaged and usually with English. Do you need instructions for handling the product? Aftercare, disposal? Does the product promote allergies? These things need to be taken into consideration. Did you have a native English speaker check the description? Have you confirmed the regulations on the product, such as hazardous materials? If it's an electronic device, does it work in the US? How do you handle repairs and customer service? Promotion. Can you effectively promote your products in the US? And things to keep in mind with shipping. Very few US companies do business directly out of the factory in Japan or the manufacturer. They usually want the product to at least be shipped to a US port. But shipping is negotiated, and it's very common that companies cooperate and compromise in order to make the most successful situation possible. Just in conclusion, I don't know all of your products, and every product situation is different, so I only gave you a few examples here and didn't cover the exceptions either. And it's difficult to cover your questions. But after years of doing this, I found that business needs to be two-way, and the most successful partnerships are based on flexibility, with the Japanese manufacturer and the US buyer understanding each other and working together to make the project successful. thank you very much. And in the future, I look forward to hearing from you through Jetro and your interest in the U.S. market and helping you as possible. Thank you.